Good afternoon, welcome back. I know it's very hard to compete with food. I learned that many years ago, but I hope you had a great lunch, and we are moving on to the educational panel, but I'd like to thank Jackie Bird, Dr., and I should say Dean Campbell from NYU Tisch School, Edwin Torres from the Parsons School, and Susan Jurevics, and Patricia Gaitan. Welcome aboard. The bios for the speakers are online, so if you like to read the full bios, because we want to keep moving the panel, it's latinvision.com/conference. Our panel today is going to be discussing the education and talent component. And I would like to first start by just giving you a sense of how we got here before we get into the full discussion. This started in the subcommittee meeting with the Latin Media and Entertainment Commission, and it was about an idea. And Chairman Baeza has been saying that all along, that this is the place where ideas are generated, but we also need to take action on those ideas. And in this discussion, we began to figure out policy. And the issue that emerged out of this discussion was talent. How do we bridge the gap between talent and industry? And in that, educational institutions, of course. I thought that it would be very important to bring these three sectors together: government, industry, and educational institutions, in order for us to effectively address this issue of talent. I'm going to briefly tell you this commission was established with the mission of making New York the capital of Latin media and entertainment. One of the goals of that commission is to develop the workforce and make New York a magnet for academic and business talent. So that's very aligned with what this commission set out to do. In our initial discussion with these three groups that we had a Time Warner back in March, we discussed some of the strengths of New York City. Number one, a destination for advertising and new media companies. Two, the most diverse Latino population. Three, the strong buying power. Four, professional networks. Five, financial center. And six, media capital. There were others, but these were the areas, I believe, where we were discussing pretty much across the board. But we also discussed the challenges, and that meant mentoring opportunities, curriculum design, attracting students to programs, raising awareness of industry and job market, diversity in the workforce, and target audiences. As a result of that discussion, we pretty much set out to do a couple of things, which was to get this group of people together to communicate more frequently and to set out and establish some objectives of getting there. One of those objectives was to do a survey with the Hispanic advertising, new media, and Latin media and entertainment industry. And that leads us to this discussion. And we are going to be posing some questions to the panelists here about what it is that we need to do here in New York. So let me start with the survey. Based on a question that we asked, ranking the most important skills deciding entry-level employees, about 61% said that collaborator is most important, followed by adaptable and flexible, and followed by results-driven. There were other criteria. And what I'd like to ask each of the panelists is, based on these findings, and I must say this survey is not statistically significant for us to arrive to conclusions, but it's giving us some real reading about what industry is thinking about, so that we can take this information, process it, discuss it, and eventually establish what I think will be a recommendation for that. So our first result was, once again, collaborator followed by adaptable and flexible, and 3, results-driven. And I'd like to ask each of the panelists, how do you view these findings from the industry perspective, from the educational perspective, and what is it that we are doing in terms of perhaps the curriculum, that we are kind of looking at it, adjusting it, maybe reconstituting a class or classes that reflect what's happening in industry, so that we can adapt and move with this emerging technologies and this life in the fast lane, actually. Dean, would you like to comment on this?
Yes, thank you. First, I want to thank Carlos, because he has been such a driving force for bringing all of us together and moving the conversation forward. Thank you so much. I think he understands exactly how government can, in fact, be a catalyst to get things done, so thank you.
I happen to be pursuing a public relations and corporate communications degree now. And interestingly, I touched this because, as you see on the screen, and that leads me to the second group was where the concentration was, meaning communications. Went back straight to communications. And what they've done, just in that particular program to illustrate, is they have two PR writing courses before you can even move further. So they kind of pull you back to basics in many ways and said, if you're really going to do this, you better know how to communicate, not just to write sentences, but every word is important. Because right now we're living in an era where there's so much clutter, so much noise, that we want short sentences to be able to capture what somebody wants to tell us right now. I'm on the move, tell me what you're going to tell me. But if we manage to establish those communications grammatically correct, perfectly correct, sound and message, I think we can be much more effective. And I think that's something that if I'm not mistaken, I'm beginning to see in the schools, kind of pulling back, saying we really need to ground our students. Otherwise, industry is going to be hurting because they are looking for talent. But guess what? When I talk to executives, I said, I want the best. I want the good writer. I want the good communicator. So this is something that we got to pull back, and I will go back to Dean's point later on, which is high schools. And we did touch on that, very important, and again, towards the end of the panel, I'll discuss that. But I want to move on to the next result, which is what area of expertise do you think your future employees will need to know? Technology absolutely was number one, and I believe we know why. Everything is changing, not even every year. Every single day, everything changes. Marketing was too, and guess what? Public relations came in third in this survey, which is an indication that all this convergence in these communications into whatever tool in technology is crucial. And it's crucial because we want to reach consumers or whoever the audience is with the right message, with the right content.